Welcome to the second season of Don't Bother Wearing Seatbelts on Bored Music Geek Radio and the podcast app of your choice. We are delighted to christen our new home, not with a band from Athens, Georgia, as some might expect, but from Montreal, Canada. It's Jardin Botanique, and they're discussing their new ambient album Isthmus, out now on Cloud Recordings.
So you guys are, and I'm gonna ask that you forgive me if I mispronounce the name, because it will be my first time, I think, actually, hearing it said correctly after I say it. But Jardin Botanique.
I'm gonna defer this to Jean-Guillaume because he's the native French speaker.
Jardin Botanique. Well, how do you say it?
I would say an English way of saying it would be Jardin Botanique.
Jardin Botanique.
Yeah, that could work.
Okay.
Isn't French the most beautiful language? It's so beautiful. It is.
I learned it not too long ago, so I'm on a journey, and there's sometimes I pronounce things and Jean-Guillaume's like, no, try again.
It sounded good to me. I like it.
I took a bit of French in high school, but I remember very little other than, je m'appelle Mathieu, tu t'appelles comment?
In Montreal, you could get pretty far with that. You'll be fine.
All right, good stuff.
It sounds even romantic when you do it, Matthew. So.
Aww.
So you guys are putting out this album Isthmus, and is this the first album that you guys have put out together, or have there been previous releases?
Yeah, it's the first album.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've put out some releases on Bandcamp of just kind of like one-offs of jams that we've done together, but I would say this is the full first kind of concept album release what we're putting out. Yeah.
Okay, and is it just the two of you guys on the album in its entirety, or do you have guest musicians that came in?
It's just the two of us, and then of course John is playing John Fernandes of Olivia Tremor Control and many other music projects, as you know.
Yep.
He's playing clarinet, but from like a distance.
Ding, 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 ding. Matthew and I were just talking before everybody joined about, we were theorizing if it was just two people, and he was very adamant that John Kiran Fernandes had to be playing clarinet on this.
Yes.
Ding, ding, ding. You're the winner. But yeah, normally it's the two of us, and on Isthmus, what you're hearing is a big old setup and some looping, and Jean-Guillaume's coming in with some guitar and sequences, so it might sound as if there's more people there, but it's basically the two of us, and then we sent a tape over to John to overdub. So it's a long distance collaboration of sorts.
I was kind of wondering how much of it is like acoustically played, although that's probably not the right word, versus like MIDI and programmed and all that. It seems like it's a mix for sure, but I wasn't sure exactly.
I mean, mostly is like synthesizer already with improv with the synthesizer, but we use some sequencer. These like kind of live sequencer where there you cannot fully control what's going on, or it's not super precise, so you have to kind of play with it and see what's going on. So there's no like, we like to kind of do our DAW setup without like the computer, and then getting to a more like edit version afterwards. The jam part, most of the recording is like the setup we do in our living room at home.
Mhm.
And yeah, so we had a little like programming, and basically we plugged everything on a console, and we were kind of like fading and fade out like the sequence or the other part that were already going on. So kind of like the Elephant Six project way of making, we got kind of really inspired by that.
Yeah.
And we watched the documentary.
Yeah, we watched the documentary and we're like, we have a 4-track cassette recorder. Let's like dust that off. It's from a friend's wife's ex-boyfriend. Like we're like, we've got this like long-term loan of this cassette recorder. Let's like see what we could do. So and I was kind of tired of dolls anyway. Like I'd been like teaching myself stuff. I'd been hitting some walls, and I'm like, you know what? Let's just plug some stuff in and fade in, fade out. And it was a lot of chance operations too. We have a DX7, and I find that it's really cheesy on its own, but when you attach some effects to it, and we had a looper, kind of like a multi-effect looper, and it just started kind of spinning, and you just kind of had to run with it and catch up with it, and it ended up just taking a life on of its own. And then, of course, sending things to John, it's kind of like an act of trust. But I've played with him many times before when I was living in Athens. He was actually my next door neighbor when I first moved to Athens.
I was going to ask how it was that you guys ended up hooking up with Cloud Recordings. And that answers that question.
Exactly. It was great. Yeah, I would think it was first in 2010 or 11 on Talmadge Drive. I think we were literally both taking out our trash at the same time, and we just got to talking. And I remember one of the first things we talked about is I really don't love my last name, and I was kind of like, oh, Bundy, haha, everybody, like, it's either a serial killer or like.
Sure.
And John was like, Kate, some of the best saxophones are made by a company called Bundy, so it's going to be all right. And I was like, you know what? That's the kind of reassurance I need in my life. And yeah, we started jamming together and just became long friends ever since. Yeah.
I think that's really beautiful that two people were put in the same geography who have kind of like a modern classical composer vibe to their music.
Yeah.
And maybe, maybe it's just because Athens is kind of a magical place. You would never have somebody who like, with you coming from like a classical background or whatever to, having John who listens to all kinds of music, but would probably be more knowledgeable of weird modern classical psychedelia type music than anybody else around.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I remember going by to Wuck Street because he was working there a lot too. And I would basically just buy any CD that he recommended. And
yeah, he'd
and
always have his John's Picks section, and there would just be amazing stuff in there.
So good. So good. And we started jamming regularly. I had a harmonium at home. And so we would do kind of these harmonium clarinet, like drone style jams. And we performed a few times, but mostly during the years like 2006, 2018, right before I moved to Montreal. And it was in Montreal that I met Jean-Guillaume for the first time. And that's how Jardin Botanique got started. And it was really actually also tied to both of our love for Athens music. One of the things when we met on a dating app, I saw that he had most recently been listening to Of Montreal.
Okay.
And I was like, no kidding. We're in Of Montreal, or we're in Montreal now. And it's like one of my favorite Athens bands.
Right.
And I think one of the things that really, got us on that first date was I was like, wouldn't it be cool if we started a band together called Of Athens in Montreal? And it was like this kind of sealed this like Montreal Athens destiny. That's kind of like the beginning steps of our music project together, and eventually how Jardin Botanique started.
Because they're kind of two similar cities to Montreal, and Athens have both like a creative vibe and kind of like niche like scenes of artists and do it yourself scenes too. So it's like there's an interesting parallel for the two cities, I think. It's like not too big, also very creative. Has this
And you can do any like super weird random thing, and there's going to be people at your show. Kind of like in Athens, you're just like, let's just get weird, and then there's people right there with you. It's really fun.
That's a great dating app success story, though.
It is.
Yeah, they're rare, but
Yes.
You had mentioned earlier about recording this like on like a cassette 4-track or something, and it just sort of reminded me of, I recently was in Portland, Oregon visiting a friend, and I noticed he had purchased a digital 4-track, which I guess is probably similar, but just digital. It records to a disc instead of a cassette. But just playing around with it at his place, it was like, oh yeah, this is different than doing it on a DAW and all of that. I'm just kind of curious about that whole process of how you were recording it. I mean, also there's this whole like meditative vibe. Like the first time I heard the record, I was like, okay, ambient music, whatever, blah, 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 because I wasn't in the mood for it. And then I listened to it like maybe a couple hours later while I was kind of like just looking to mellow out. And it was like, once I was hooked in, I was like, oh, this is a ride. All right, cool. It's like, it's definitely not a record I think for every mood, but if you're in the mood, I really enjoyed it quite a bit. It seems like there is some thought into it, but I don't know how much thought there is, and how much of it was just sort of like messing around with the 4-track, and how much of it was like pre-thought out sort of like composition in terms of how everything is layered and all that.
Well, I think I was kind of the person who first just started sitting down with the gear, and a lot of our arrangements start off with just a setup, more out of curiosity, just like what happens if we hook this up to this pedal and process it through here or through a sequencer and then plug it in and see what happens. So a lot of it is really operating on that like chance operations level. So it's sort of a leap of faith, but with a very loose plan, at least from like a gear level. And I think really just like setting up the loop first and seeing what loop is really kind of carrying you. And I think really from there, it just kind of kept going. Like it was all first takes. And then on the last 2 songs, I think that's when you started kind of coming in more with the sequences, and you even had a guitar there. So it's really kind of a painting in the moment.
We put a lot of thoughts in the setup first, like kind of like, I think with the 4-track, and we use like a little console, so we have like a kind of maximum number of inputs. So we're kind of try to maximize the input. Like, okay, we can put a synth here, hook to a pedal and a guitar there, and kind of have like the maximum possibility of input for a jam, and then we kind of start from there. And I think it's also kind of the DAW-less freedom of it, because I don't know, there's just something with the DAW. Sometimes you press record and it feels like, I don't know, precious hard drive bytes floating by and I don't know, you just don't have that feeling with the 4-tracks where you just like, if you press record, and I don't know, it feels like more free for some reason, or I don't know. It's like you can almost forget it's running at some point, and especially with the tapes that are like 60-minute, you just like run it and like whatever happens, and then if we sometime we listen it back and we're like, okay, there's like really good part in the middle, and we're gonna use that. So that's I think like the it's kind of like we set the setup for like freeing us from constraint and having the most possibility when it's time to playing and switch instrument and go to sequence and stuff. So.
Yeah.
I love that mindset of like the when you're digitally recording, you see like a waveform the whole time. So you're like, you visually see this music being put into the universe or whatever. But when you don't have that on a 4-track, it's still like you're still having the musical conversation back and forth without seeing this. I think that's really unique, and people who don't record analog or haven't ever done that, they don't experience that visualization that you're actually creating while you're creating it. I think that's really cool that you guys because when I listened to this, it felt like a very cool musical conversation that you were having. And of course, I don't know who was playing what or whatever, but it's cool to know that you had maximum opportunity to make music while only having those 4 tracks, because you were doing it in the moment or whatever. I think it's very cool.
Yeah. And I mean, I think at the time we had this loose idea of collaborating with John, and it had been brought up before, but I think when we recorded the tape, it wasn't necessarily like part of the plan at that time. But when I went back and listened to it, I was like, wow, this feels like an epic journey of sorts, and it requires a little bit of patience, but there's a journey here. And it kept reminding me of John and some of the collaborations that he and I would have just, in our house blasting off. And then we ended up sending John the tape by post. And right before I did that, Jean-Guillaume was like, wait, let's digitize this tape just in case. Yeah. Let's make a quick copy.
Let's make a copy.
And I'm so glad we did, because that tape got lost in the mail. Like, it's still floating around somewhere.
Oh my God.
Maybe some postal worker is like having a blast. Like, I don't know. So we ended up, it was sort of like a failed, experiment at that point. But I was like, okay, we've got the digital copy. And, after waiting for a while longer, we realized that tape was just never going to get to John. So actually, John reached out to James Huggins.
Yeah.
James was able to kind of help do a setup where he could like listen to or the digitized version of the tape and overdub with clarinet. And I think John literally did it just like we did, like first takes, first time hearing it, basically. I won't speak for him, but when he texted me right after, he was like, Kate, I think I just had a religious experience playing on top of this and hearing it for the first time. So I think it was a really almost like a bit of a spiritual connection across borders, across kind of space and time.
I definitely felt that. It's kind of like what I got, like the first time I heard it, I don't think I was necessarily open. It was like more like an assignment. And like the second time I listened to it, it was like, oh, I need to chill out and just listen and whatever. And it does hook you in. Like I could feel that it wasn't just like wallpaper music. It was, these are people who are connecting on some level while they're talking melodically, I guess, for lack of a better word. But I did, although there certainly are some also just random sounds that are not necessarily, I guess, your typical musical sounds. But the one thing I did have a question on is, it does sound like from what you're saying is that there's kind of like, well, let's just jam and see what happens, see where the wind takes us sort of vibe to it. But I was kind of curious how much of it is live, like where you're playing with each other some stuff and getting it on tape, and how much of it is playing along with whatever you recorded, say 15 minutes ago or a day ago or whenever.
All of it on our end is recorded live, all takes together, first takes. So it was just
really
happening right there. Yeah. There wasn't really a lot of like mixing or production like in the moment. It's just straight on.
That's kind of surprising to me, because honestly, I mean, it feels like a very calculated at times album, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean it feels like you've crafted an experience from beginning to end.
Yeah, thank you. And I think when I listened, at the moment, I didn't really realize what was happening. I was just like, oh, well, that was cool. And I'm like fading the volume on the tracks. And then when I went back and listened to it, I was like, okay, I didn't expect that this would be so epic. And we've got to like do something with this and take it further. And I don't know, I think it does really speak to just some cosmic connection, like voyage between Montreal and Athens. And that's why we called it Isthmus too. It's kind of this like connection between lands. And even the song titles, they're kind of half in English, half in French. Some of them reference places in Athens like the Pulaski Street Swing, which is like a very local thing. If you know where that is and the railroad, you used to swing on there, and it's like this very magical feeling. And even when we would kind of go back and forth, we would notice that the geese, the Canadian geese that we see up in Montreal, then when we go down in the south in winter time, normally they're all there. So it was kind of one of these things. Is like there's this kind of there's a forged passageway that's ancestral of some sorts, and like let's kind of orchestrate that in a very niche collaboration between our brains. So it's there's something kind of organic there.
Yeah, I love that musical migration.
How did you end up in Montreal?
I went to go do my PhD up at McGill University in Montreal. So previously I was at University of Georgia and University of North Georgia. I was teaching and doing my graduate work there. And it just made a lot of sense for me to I was always trying to get out of the US, and Athens was my happy place, but I just felt like I needed to kind of expand my horizons a bit more. And I'm glad I did. I mean, it led me to meeting Jean-Guillaume. I speak French now. I got my PhD. I'm working in tech now. Like, just kind of changed my whole life.
Your president is not Donald Trump.
Also a big plus.
It's probably why your tape was confiscated. They didn't know if you're sending
communist propaganda through the mail.
Right? They were probably like, this is sus. This is from Canada. Yeah. It's a tape. Who knows?
Do you hear this? This is the kind of shit they play at Stanford.
I'm just kind of wondering what it's like to live in a place where you can just be mildly annoyed by your politicians and not completely annoyed and distrustful of them.
Well, I was just going to ask, since, this is kind of a Elephant Six type podcast, like, and you guys had talked about, like, before even knowing each other, you had this kind of weird connection of whatever, whether it be of Montreal or whatever. It's like, what kind of records that have been put out by an E6 band would you think like kind of influences you on the daily? Like, do you guys have favorite E6 records?
I mean, I love Olivia Tremor Control for sure, and I kind of
good man.
It's like a band that I knew the name, but not that much until I really dig into it, and I was not really aware of that whole Athens scene before you explained to me more about it, and I kind of knew all these bands more in a separate way, like Neutral Milk Hotel or. Mm-hmm. But when I get kind of like, okay, there was really something, and I kind of dig into more of it, and mm-hmm. It's really impressive what they did in a short amount of time. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, and obviously I'm a big of Montreal fan, and I love that kind of also album that they did, Major Organ and
Major Machine. Organ and the Adding Machine. Yeah, it's fantastic.
It was like I like this kind of idea of like a super group, mm-hmm. And I kind of knew it because of Kevin Barn from Montreal, so I kind of like follow his discography and ended up listening to that, and I was like, that's so strange, all these like people coming together, and it looks mm-hmm. It looks like a fun time for sure.
I love Olivia Tremor Control as well. Dusk at Cubist Castle is like just forever. And I love Marshmallow Coast. I love
Yes.
them, and I got to know Andy a little bit as well, and I even just like play some of their songs on the piano. Like I really love Marshmallow Coast, and I mean that's kind of I'm a bit of a Athens music ambassador in Montreal too. Like I always wear my shirts around, and people are like,
Good.
"What is pilon? What is pilon?" Because pilon in French is
You're
like
right.
is basically like when you know one of those like orange cones, like
It's
traffic.
like the electrical
Yeah.
towers.
Yeah, it's like an electrical tower, and so people are like, "Oh, c'est quoi Pilon?" And I'm just like, "Well, this is like the most amazing band that you must discover now." So I'm constantly kind of repping Athens music, and I'm really proud of the work that John keeps doing, and just the time that I was there too. I mean, it was just like everyone was playing with each other. Like Circulatory System was playing amazing shows. I even got to see this like amazing secret show by the Glands, and I didn't even know what I was walking into. People were just like, "You got to be here," and I'm so glad I was.
Did you kind of know about that scene before you decided to go to the University of Georgia?
A bit, yeah. Like I'd been following, I mean, I think everyone in my high school was just like, let's jump in the minivan and go to Athens and go see Up Montreal. They're amazing. And I'd known about Apples in Stereo for sure as well. So yeah, even as like, and I grew up in Atlanta, so growing up in that area, there was a bit of a network coming through even just locally. So yeah, it was definitely a draw. I was like, I know Athens is a really cool music town, and I was really bored in the suburb that I was in. So I'm glad I moved there.
It's cool. It's cool that the vibration though was going, and of course Atlanta has a huge music
Mm-hmm.
scene. It's like
Mm-hmm.
there's actually like infrastructure there, and the thought that maybe you could teach music or make music or and as like a viable existence. So that's cool.
For sure. And I even remember when I was living in Normaltown, there were folks moving from like New York, and they're like, and I'll be like, "Oh yeah, what brings you to Athens?" And they're just like, "All my favorite bands are here." Like they were moving. I was like, "Wait, but you're like in New York, like close to New York City. Like what's like?" They're like, "No, my favorite bands are here, and I want to start a band, and it's cheap to live here at the time." And it was still a moment, and I know that there's amazing things still happening and going on. It makes me think of like John posts a lot on social media, and one of his posts really stood out to me. It was like, even though we celebrate amazing music that was happening in different moments and different times, there's still amazing stuff going on. It's not always a thing of the past. Like it just takes kind of getting out there, seeing what's going on. So I definitely think John is a central figure in making sure that that continues. It's like the best days haven't passed. It's still there. It's happening.
That's honestly, that's a big part of why we do this show. We want people to understand that this is an ongoing concern. There is amazing music that is still being put out.
Hmm. Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. So, and yeah, we're going to be playing in Athens on September 18th to release Isthmus, and because Isthmus is going to be out on Cloud Recordings Bandcamp Friday, September 19th. So we'll play a show the night before in a venue called Bolo Bolo. We went there once before and we thought it was so rad. Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun.
So we're excited. And I think we might have a couple friends of Cloud Recordings maybe opening. So I'm not sure who because it's not confirmed yet, but it'll be a really nice full circle moment to come back and be in that environment.
I'm just curious, what is a live performance like? What do you anticipate that being like? Is it going to be mostly ambient? It's going to be more songs that are, more traditionally written out as you were talking about before, or what would that be like?
I mean, we definitely want to like recreate the Isthmus as close as possible, but it's like we probably gonna have to almost like sample ourselves to like the key moment or like to find a way to like redo it with different gear or gear that we can travel around. So that will be a like challenge, but I think we want this kind of like improv. I mean, not improv, but because we're probably gonna see John before, but kind of like building on Isthmus theme as closely as possible, even if it's like, I guess, 100% hard to like replicate.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a kind of like, I guess with the setup again, we can trust the setup that it will bring us closely enough.
I think, going into it, we need to surrender that it's not going to be like one for one. And especially with the gear too, it's like we can't haul a Moog grandmother and a Yamaha DX7 like on the plane. Like I just don't think so. We've got like other smaller synth that can sort of emulate those sounds, and I'm going to borrow my dad is a big gearhead, and I'm very fortunate that I'm downstream from him. So sometimes I get like that was kind of how I got into synthesizers from my classical piano background, is I was like, oh, I can play anything I want on keys, but now I have buttons. This is fun. And and so yeah, I think the first part will be fully Isthmus with John, and then I think we'll play 5 or 6 of our kind of synth pop songs where we'll be singing as well. And yeah, it should be cool singing in French and to an Athens crowd. I think they'll be okay. I think they'll be with us.
Yeah, they'll be open.
One thing I wanted to ask too about this particular record, since it's coming out this fall and you guys are traveling down to Georgia, are you guys planning on doing touring, or what? Are you still teaching? Like, what do you guys do for work in Montreal? Like, could you tour and stuff like that?
We haven't planned a tour. We mostly like have our day life, day jobs and everything. I'm more from a cinema background. I work also like in graphic design, so like editing and graphic design and motion design. So it's pretty much. But I mean, that would be fun to tour. I don't know if it's possible or.
Yeah, we would be open to it, and I think one of the exciting things that's happened lately is I've become a permanent resident of Canada, and which means that I'm eligible to apply for grants, residencies, all kinds of other support systems here for artists and musicians. So I think we're really looking. We see it kind of this coming year as like a year of release. Like we've got stuff. We're deep in like the mixing stage of kind of like more of like a pop album that will be released probably in the coming months. We want to get more on platforms. We want to reach out for support, apply to play to some festivals here in Montreal and in Quebec, and just kind of see where it carries us. But it's cool that I have this line of connection with Georgia too, and even with Atlanta. And like Immaterial Possession, when they came and played here in Montreal, they like stayed at our house, and it's like it's just like really sweet, this kind of like friendship that keeps continuing. And so like I don't know, I fully anticipate that maybe we could kind of create like a sort of cross cultural, cross city relationship there. But I mean, that's the thing. It's like when you work full time and you do music in whatever kind of like creative free time you have after that, it presents a challenge. But I don't know. I also feel really relieved that I don't have the pressure to make this like my full-time financial line of like that I have to make it work.
Yeah, and I love that. So, you being a graphic design animation, I would love to see, some sort of visual element to this music, like, because to me, it is very soundtrack type, so that's exciting that you even, and maybe that doesn't interest you at all, like doing.
No, we did last year we played a show and I did the whole visual for the show with like, and Jardin Botanique has a lot of the flower themes and like kind of like flower books and scans from there and playing with that. So we definitely want to bring that forward. in the venues that is possible, because it's not all venues that still have all the equipment. And I come from more like cinema background. I perform more into space that had like giant screen, and that was like available to us, and you can play with that. I don't know if like Bolo Bolo will have a screen there when we play, but
like they might set up like a sheet kind of thing and have a projections.
Yeah, definitely want to have it again, and it's kind of like this theme that easily renew. And I love this band in Montreal called Organ Mood that is kind of also doing like basically audio-visual performance. They have like one person. They were mostly a duo for a long time, like one person on music and one person on visual. And I always found inspiring that each time they were performing, that was a whole thing. That was like both visual and
had like equal footing.
Yeah. So this this always important. So yeah, we want to like definitely push that level of it.
Well, and Jean-Guillaume also designed the album cover and the album artwork as well. And from that, it was really cool. I just like walked in and I see Jean-Guillaume just like surrounded by like scraps of photos that we took and
collage and
putting together like collage of actual photos that we took, over the years. Yeah, I definitely think we'll make use of some of the collage outtakes as well, because it was one of those situations like they're all so good. How do we pick the one? But I think we picked the image on the Isthmus cover because it felt like a doorway. It felt like a Rothko doorway of like, let's just go in, let's transcend.
But I think like also like the visual component really helps ambient music in a way for like I don't know, even there's like two type of people, I guess. The people who will close their eyes and the people who will like focus on the trippy visual behind the performers. And
it can certainly add quite a bit to the experience. Especially I think of like the Animal Collective project, like Tangerine Reef or something like that, where they made a visual album to go along with the music, and it's just beautiful.
Oh yeah,
I would be really excited to see what you came up with.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I think something that we might consider doing, and we'll talk to John about it, is I think YouTube, there's a lot of there's a lot of tolerance and interest for long form ambient music on YouTube with a visual sort of element. I mean, I definitely think during the pandemic, people were like, how do I escape to the natural world through my screen kind of thing. And so I think it could be interesting to have this sort of a visual version of the songs that that are on Isthmus too, so you can kind of tune in how you want to. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's ambient music and I guess studying go well together. I used to like write with like William Bezinski music all the time because it was like something just not too much aggressive, or something you can wonder and like being inspired, but also not kind of softly. And so I don't know, there's definitely something to explore there.
Yeah. There's that fine line between like what's background music and what is music that you want to actively listen to, right? And so I don't really know exactly what that line is, but it's kind of cool to hover around that line.
It's kind of like going back to what I was saying before. It was like once I was locked in, I was locked in. I think you definitely are either over the line or riding the line, where it's like, yeah, you can kind of space out and do whatever while you're also listening to this, but then there are several minute passages along the way that you can't help but not listen to.
It's attention grabbing.
Because there are, there are definitely motifs in there that I kept hearing and things like that, and just seeing how the slow transformation from largely almost all acoustic initially into all electronic by the end, I think it's really compelling, at least to somebody like me. So I enjoyed it. I could see specifically wanting to listen to it as opposed to just putting on the background as something to go. So kudos.
Oh, thanks a lot.
I do think it is an absolutely beautiful album. One thing I was going to ask you guys is you're obviously both big fans of Montreal. You're living in Montreal. What would each of your favorite of Montreal albums be? They can't be the same one. You can't tell. You got to have one each.
All right, mine is False Priest.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I love skeletal lamping.
Okay. So you guys are into that, like that period following Hissing Fauna is where you guys, like, that's where you lie in most of your love for Montreal.
Yeah, I would say.
Yeah.
But you expand the gamut.
Yeah, I mean, I still follow every release they do, and yeah, I love that they are always evolving and always like, putting weirds down and just pushing boundaries. And even the last albums I like too. It's they're really sometimes hard to dig into, but have this kind of I don't know, rewarding quality of when you spend enough time.
People get a little bit disappointed by some of the most recent albums, and the thing is that those albums are not bad. They're good albums. They're just difficult, and they're difficult on purpose. Like he's doing a thing right now. They're not always going to be pop masterpieces. He has a lot more than that inside of him.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, they're deep. Yeah, I mean, they're not for everybody for sure, but I think it's very. I have a lot of admiration for keep it going and keep experimenting.
I find it really interesting. I have a really good friend here in Des Moines, and she just went to her first of Montreal show in Chicago, and is just kind of diving into that world. And it's so interesting because I asked her, how it was, like, and it's almost like now like a Rocky Horror Picture Show experience where she's like a virgin of going to a Montreal show. This is your first show, and but like the community like surrounds and welcomes a new, because that's a band that now has been around for 35 years, and I was and still am a huge fan of the stuff that was like up to 2008 9, that early period, early middle, whatever. Now there's so many different periods, but like I'm still a fan of all the new stuff, and I always listen to the new records. But like it was just so fun and interesting to talk to her about like what's happening at those shows now, what's going on with the music, because it's like, I have a video that I took of Kevin Barnes playing the song is it just called Montreal on my couch,
wow.
in like 2001, like while he was on tour in Iowa, you know what I mean? Like, and just to know what that band has gone through and accomplished and continues to do it, it's very inspiring as an artist, even if somebody like me who's like, I just want to see them play the songs from Cherry Peel or Gay Parade. I want that show, like it's very inspiring from an artistic point of view that there is like no interest in that at all, in looking back and only forward.
Yeah, we went to a Montreal show. When was it? Last year in Montreal?
Maybe 2 years ago.
Maybe 2 years ago, year and a half ago. And it was like the most horrible weather ever. It was like sideways rain, freezing in your face. And John Gilman and I were like walking there. We're like, are we even going to make it? And we get there and it was a vibe. And it was like all kinds of people, young people, like parents, just like queer scene, and people were having a blast. So there's still an appetite for the type of music that's coming out lately, I think. And it reminds me too, I was very fortunate to see one of the last Olivia Tremor Control performances in Portugal, actually. And it's like a weird story.
Really?
Yeah, I was at Primavera Sound in Porto, Portugal, which is basically like the kind of sweet, calm sister of Primavera Sound in Barcelona. And I'd been in touch with John, but like, I don't think either of us had like working European cell phones. So we were kind of like emailing each other back and forth. And we didn't have tickets to go because it was like kind of a special ticketed event in the festival. And John's like, just show up, I'll get you in. It's gonna be fine. So of course I like show up and they're inside this massive theater, but it's like basically like a wall of glass. And I'm looking around and it's like so full of people. It's so chaotic. I'm at a music festival, right? And I'm like, how am I going to find John? How am I going to get into the show? Like, who am I going to have to like sweet talk? I don't know what's happening. And then suddenly I hear, I don't even know if I heard it, but I just like noticed like somebody literally like 6 stories up, and it's John at the glass. He just like randomly saw me in a crowd of people and is like knocking on the glass. And I guess they sent somebody down to like pick me up. And so suddenly I'm like backstage with like Jeff Mangum and Bill. Bill was still alive, and like Will. And so everybody was there. And it was just a surreal moment. I'm like, what am I doing? I'm here. And the performance was amazing. And the whole theater was just like electric. And so I always think of that time. It was like John, for whatever reason, has been just this figure that I come across, and it almost seems like a chance encounter all the time, but it always works out. It's like there's not too much of a plan, but it always works out. So I just feel so grateful that I was able to kind of show up and be there at the right time. And then of course, like it wasn't long after that Bill passed, and so it just became even more bittersweet. I was just like, oh my gosh. So yeah.
That would have been the show in 2012, right?
Yeah. So it's that's definitely kind of like my top memory in relation with like Elephant Six people. Is crazy.
That's an amazing story. Just like, because John does not seem like the type of person who would be banging on glass ever. So like that he was doing it at 6 stories.
I was kind of hoping he threw down a rope ladder for you from that. That would have been great.
It's just like, it was like a needle out of a haystack situation. It was pretty wild.
He's got a scarf on and he's just like pulling it down. Amazing.
Rapunzeled you up into the Primavera show.
My hair could be long enough for that. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think the last song is more, I think that was the one where we actually kind of were like, we set up a sequence and we're like, I think whereas the other ones were sort of, it was more about the loop and seeing where it went. And I think the last one, which is more of kind of like the last song, which is kind of more sort of like square in a sense, the way it starts up with the sequence. I think that was something that was a little bit more thought of at the time, but again, we just kind of had to like let it flow.
Yeah. But we did spend some time in mixing and can try to like enhance the best moment, but like try to not like necessarily like chop the edit, but to like just make which moment stands out better, and to try to, even if it's all like obviously cut in one track and the other track is just John clarinet, so I don't know, we didn't have a lot of like different aspect to play with, but we kind of made the best of it and trying to explore a little bit of like frequency working and reverb level, basically, to try to kind of blend everything a little more together. And but that was kind of afterwards when we had the John's track, so we could kind of reflect more on how it's gonna balance each other and where things go in and out, and was more like a kind of afterthoughts after the first lines.
Yeah, like we added a reverb to John's clarinet kind of coming into the last song as well, because we wanted to create this, we wanted to establish the sequence on our end. And so it's kind of like paying close attention to the interplay with the mix, because when you have basically like 2 tracks, you're like, okay, this is it. How much can we create variation in this? So through the mix, we found some possibilities to do that, but we wanted to also stay integrous to
the performance
of it too. And really it was like a lot about trust too. It's like, I trust John. I was like, I know if we send this to him, it's going to be totally great. So it was just full on like leap of faith, trust. It's kind of like the geese when they depart. They're like, I know we got to go south and we'll make it there, but it's a journey. It's like, and then we'll be back. So I don't know. It was a bit of a leap of faith in that sense, but I think we managed to work with it. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Guys, it is, again, it's an absolutely beautiful album. I can't wait to get my hands on because it's coming out on cassette, right?
Yeah.
You're having a cassette release.
Yes. Yeah, it'll be out available September 19th, and on the cloud recordings, the Bandcamp on the cassette. And I think it'll come with a digital download as well. So yeah, when I first told my dad it was coming out on cassette, he was like, now what? He was like, who has a cassette? I'm just like, trust me, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine.
Trust me, it's a thing in the ambient world.
It's a thing. And I mean, it's kind of cool that we recorded it on cassette, and then it kind of went through these, like, by necessity, these different iterations. And then but it was always meant to be on cassette, so it'll kind of make it back there. And so it's another kind of full circle moment.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's great. Well, congratulations. And it's so great talking to you guys today. And happy that whatever dating app was used could bring this musical relationship together.
Don't Bother Wearing Seatbelts will return in 2 weeks with a look at the new release Alarm from E6 Luminaries' Giant Day. Until then, listen to great music and do what brings you joy and fulfillment.